We're now going to turn our attention to generating reports, which is one of the last steps generally done within an analysis once you've run your analysis, observed your results, and are ready to pass it on to another person. So within SRAM, there's the ability to generate custom professional reports, and you can also append existing Microsoft Word documents with the contents of whatever you'd like to include from SRAM. And it's going to include things like graphics from your model or tabulated data. You can also export spreadsheet data to Excel for post-processing. And SRAM has this built-in generated reports as well that can be directly printed to PDF or to a paper printer. My personal preference is to use Microsoft Word. I just find it more flexible. You have control over the formatting, the size of images, and so on. So it just gives me a little bit more control, but you can use whatever works best for you. So we're going to look at generating reports within SRAM. And this is the model that I have for us. I'm not going to go into too much detail since we're not really concerned about the results or the building of this model. I'm more concerned with the actual presentation of this information. So I'll click OK to analyze, run an analysis, just a linear static analysis. You can see that it ran cleanly. We just have two load cases. And I'm going to look at the results for load case number 2, which is a pressure load case on these shelves. And this particular load case here, I'm just going to show some of the moments. I'll look at the moment diagrams, in particular the Z moments within the model. Now within this diagram scale factors and styles button, I can actually configure the display of my diagrams. So I can choose whether I want, we call this a fill diagram or a line diagram. We can choose different scaling methods. So if I go with the automatic scale, SRAM is going to try and fill the screen with the diagrams that are being displayed, which may not always work for you. I personally don't like this method that much, but a lot of people I know do. We could also define a user-defined scale, where we can just scale up those values where we would like. So maybe I want to go with a smaller value of 0.5. And this method will allow us to actually see a difference between each load case in terms of the magnitudes and so on. You can see that this static seismic load case is appearing much smaller than this pressure load case for the Z moments because it has smaller values. The third option is to use the specify max projected length option. So I'll use in this situation, I'm going to say, I'm going to make this diagram appear as being 20 millimeters if we were to use a ruler and measure it on our screen. Press OK, and it actually looks pretty similar to that scale that I'd already set up. But the difference here is that if we were to switch load cases, we're not going to notice a change in the magnitudes. The longest one is always going to appear as 20 millimeters. The actual results will be different, but just how they appear on our screen will still appear the same. Now within this diagram scale factors and styles button, there's also other parameters that we can change. We can choose whether or not we'd like to invert our moment diagrams if we're used to a different convention than the default within SFrame. By all means, change it here. We can display numerical values on our diagrams and choose how it's being displayed. So we can include labels, rotate the text or not, and also include specific details for each one of them. I won't go into too much detail for now though. I keep closing that dialog before I'm finished with it. So a few other parameters that could be adjusted are fonts. So if we go to the fonts button here, we can control the fonts used within our display of the model and the results. So we can choose the different types of fonts, the style, and also the text size, which we may find is too large or too small. We can change it here. So that's under the diagram, scale, factors, and styles. This button, the rainbow colored button, click on fonts. And as we've already seen, the format button gives us more control for how these numbers appear in our model. So we can control the decimal digits. I just had 1 set up originally. Let's increase this to 2. We can control the integer digits and other details that might be of interest. And press OK now. And we can see that that takes effect. Now that I've configured my graphical display here the way I like it, I can actually add this image to a list of documents that are being sent to Microsoft Word. So to do this, I can open the Export Image to Word document dialog. That's this button right here. It says Add to Document. If I left click on this option here, it allows me to control the name of the image that's being selected. So here I'm just going to go with, I'll call this Z moment lowercase 2. Press OK. We can also add different tables as well. So if I wanted to go to the spreadsheet window and maybe add some geometry data, for instance, maybe I want to include the joint data or the section data, that information can also be exported to Word. So I can go to Add to Documents, and I can add a specific report. And I'm just going to call this report number 1 just to be generic. And it will allow me to configure what exactly is included within that. So I can include either results or load or geometry input. So I can say, let's look at, in this case here, I'll include our section properties. And maybe I also want to include the load initialization table. And I can even include reports as well, or results as well. Those can be included as well. So I'll just include my reactions just for something to be in there, and I'll say for all load cases. And I'll just press the OK button now to add that to my document. And once we've done that, we can click the button right next to the Add to Document button, Export to Word Document. And we can see here that we have a list of the 2 documents in this situation that appear within our, or that we've added to our Word document export. We can include the little description, we can move them as much as we like, and then once I'm ready, I can click the Word button. It's going to ask me to save this, so let me just save this quickly here. I'm just going to call it Test Report. It's going to save it as a Word document. And it's going to come up with the information relevant to me. So here I can see my Z moment image, which can be rotated, it can be expanded, it can be formatted however I like. I have my tables, which again, because they're in Word, I have full control over them. I can format them however I would like as well, change the titles of the tables if I'm interested. So we have a lot of control over this. And this only includes the data that I chose to export. So you can see I also chose my reactions, and it's going to show me my reactions at every reaction joint that I selected for both load cases. Now I just had a mixed mash of data in here, but you can kind of get the idea for how that would look. Something else that I just want to bring to your attention as well is if we did want to have anything exported to not Word, but maybe Excel, we could do that as well. For example, I might be interested in looking at the reactions within an Excel file. Maybe I want to use this for some quick checks of something within Excel. I can simply just select this top left corner cell here. It's going to select the entire spreadsheet, and I just go Control-C. I go into Excel, and I copy and paste it. It's going to include all the data. We don't include the actual column headers there, and so on, but we can always add those after. There's also ways within SFrame to export the entire model, including the results, to an MDB file, Microsoft Access Database, in which case you don't even have to select these rows and columns yourself. It will automatically do that for you. And it can read and write MDB files.